Welcome to On the Clock right here on Forward Progress. I'm Rob Pizzola, and today I'm going to put myself in the shoes of Saints GM Mickey Loomis. Now, the rules are very simple here. We're using Pro Football Focus's mock draft simulator, keeping all the default settings. I'm going to draft the top 3 rounds in this year's draft, and this is what I would be doing if I was making the draft pick. This is not a prediction on what the Saints are going to do in the 14 spot. This is what I would be doing if I was making the pick. I'm a big believer in drafting for value, not necessarily drafting for positional needs. So we'll get to that shortly. You guys let me know how you think I did down in the comments below. Make sure you do like if you enjoy this series, and make sure you're subbed here on Forward Progress for more of these going forwards. And as a reminder, if you're looking to bet the NFL draft, anything for that matter, Pinnacle Sportsbook is the place to play. Find out what pro bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle's where the best bettors bet. You must be 19 plus, not available in the US. And as always, please play responsibly. Let's get into the draft here. And the Saints are picking 14th, and in the second round, 45th. They do not have a third round pick this year. We're going to enter the draft room. Now, New Orleans could certainly use a quarterback in this year's draft. PFF has outlined their needs as quarterback, wide receiver, tackle, and defensive line. I tend to agree with that, but I do think that they could use depth at a lot of other positions as well, particularly tight end, really anything on the offensive line for that matter. This is not a team that is necessarily a Super Bowl contender with the talent that they have right now. Some great players on defense, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu. They bring in Chase Young in the offseason as well. They have Chris Olave on offense. Like, there's some pieces there, but they really want to round out their roster a lot more. This is the first team where we're going to slow down the speed of this draft to a slower speed in the early going. Maybe not necessarily the slowest, but right around there. And we're going to see how the quarterbacks at the top of the draft play out. Because if we get Drake May falling, Jaden Daniels falling, I'm not opposed to the Saints moving up and trying to find the quarterback of the future here. So we'll start the draft and we'll see how this plays out. Caleb Williams, number 1, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, number 3. So we know that at 4 here, Arizona's willing to deal this pick. They've announced that publicly. So it'd be a lot to move up to get Drake May at 4. He sits behind Derek Carr for 1 year. Probably does not put the Saints into contender status necessarily, even if Drake May turns out to be a great quarterback. But then they can build around that roster. Let's see how much it would take. So let's look for Arizona's 4th. We're going to give up the 14th, a future first rounder, and they would take that. Interesting. Okay, let's go future second rounder. And this year's, let's start with the third at the 150 pick. That's not happening. Let's try it. Let's see. 5% chance. Let's give them a low ball offer. All right. So we'd have to throw in that 45 and remove the 150 here to get a higher chance. So let's throw Denver's 45 here and let's take out the 150. Let's take out the future round 2. And we would have no other picks to make in this entire piece of content. This would be the shortest video of all time. And then the Saints don't have a pick till 150. This is tough. I think this is too much to give up. I do. So we're just going to let this draft play out. We're going to resume it, and let's hope Drake May doesn't get picked right here. Okay, 6, the Giants. So Drake May's still on the board. We'd still have to give up 14, and probably let's click 45 for Denver and see. That would guarantee basically. So let's give up the 45 and see if the Giants will give back a 7. And let's see if we can move up here and offer this trade to the Giants. So let's go for it. Oh, playing hard to get. Let's start throwing in some late round picks for the Saints, starting with 190. We'll offer that trade. Still doesn't move the needle. We'll go all the way up to let's go 150. If they're not going for this, I'm not really willing to give up all that much more. So let's offer this and see what happens. We are on the clock. The trade has been accepted. So I like this move. Obviously, I'm not going to do this with very many teams, but the Saints quarterback situation right now, Carr, Taysom Hill, Nathan Peterman, you don't have your quarterback of the future. This allows you to draft Drake May, keep him behind Derek Carr for a year, learn from a veteran. You don't have to throw him under the fire. A lot of people saying he's not necessarily NFL ready, might be a little bit of a work in progress. That's totally fine. Drake May going to be the pick here for the Saints at number 6. All right, the Saints at pick number 70 here. Unless we trade this pick, it's going to be the last pick that we're doing in the first 3 rounds here. Kyrie Jackson, corner, a little bit too high. Spencer Rattler, we just took our quarterback of the future. We saw it happen before with RG3 and Kirk Cousins in the same draft, but not something I'm really willing to do. Jalen Wright, not on the radar. Tez Walker is really interesting because this is right about the same range that he would typically go in. This would be the North Carolina to North Carolina connection with Drake May and Tez Walker. Let's click into his player card really quickly. Not the best grades versus man, so definitely going to have to improve that at the NFL level. Let's check. Not a polished product. That's not a big deal. There's already some polished products in Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Pretty solid athlete. Has the potential to get picked in the top 60. Strong contested catch player. So definitely someone that is on the radar for us. For the New Orleans Saints out of UNC. Another name that stood out to me was Tavondre Sweat, and this fits a positional need as well. Defensive lineman out of Texas. I've seen some mocks that have had him go as high as mid-40s, which is mid-second round. So PFF a little bit lower on him, and his draft stock kind of has been up and down over the course of the last 3 months or so. Pretty solid player, size that you can't teach. He's very big. Impactful, versatile interior defensive lineman. A weight and conditioning could be an issue for him overall. But this is someone whose size makes him a pretty solid pick at this point as well. So I think this one's going to be between Sweat and Tez Walker. If we scroll down a little bit here as well, see who else is on the board. No one that stands out that is like a huge value play at number 70. Let's check out that trade offer we have right now as well, which is one trade offer. It's at 96 from Jacksonville. It's not like we need to recoup a bunch of draft picks. If you look at the Saints on the right-hand side, there's a ton of later round picks, 168, 170, 175. So I think we're going to make this pick here. Offense has been an issue for New Orleans. Big play potential. Defensively, certainly they could use some upgrades on the defensive line. Kalen Saunders on the interior is a fine player. Nathan Shepard was one of the worst interior linemen in the entire league last year for the Saints. So this is kind of a toss-up. I think because we went QB offensive side of the ball first, and I think this is a fairly even decision, we'll go with defensive lineman here, take Tavondre Sweat out of Texas to round out our 2 picks for the Saints inside of the draft here. So they're going to simulate the rest of the first 3 rounds here and ultimately give us some grades on the selections. I can't imagine how Drake May wouldn't be an A+ and Tavondre Sweat a B+ in that spot. So the 2 picks, we address a quarterback of the future for New Orleans by trading up with the New York Giants. We get our defensive lineman, who's a big boy that can be plugged in right away. And the Saints use the remainder of their picks later on to round out the roster. Pretty interesting draft altogether. Saints get their QB of the future. Let me know how you think I did down below. Would you have made the trade up with Drake May available at 6, or would you have stayed put at 14 and not given up the assets? I think it's pretty close, but ultimately I'm pretty happy with that. Also, with the second pick I made, would you have went with Tez instead of the defensive lineman out of Texas? Let me know down in the comments below. Make sure you're subbed here on Forward Progress for future mock draft videos. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure you smash that like button down below as well.